Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I've got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be covering our post-banless build for Adamancipator. And although the deck did not receive any direct hits, it did receive a couple of indirect ones to some of the packages that the deck liked to use, or at least that I like to use quite a bit within the deck. Most notably among those are going to be the loss of the Braver package as well as the Ishizu package. Although the new banlist has not hit at the time that I am recording this video just yet, and at the time that I play these games, we did still experience in the very near future, or are going to experience rather in the very near future, the loss of Smoke Grenade the Thief, as well as a few of the Ishizu cards. So with Smoke Grenade gone, there's not really any reason at all to play Braver, so that package has been completely ousted. The biggest change you'll notice is that I'm down from 60 cards back to 40. I think I even said relatively recently that, like, you know, there's kind of no reason to play Adamancipator at 40 over 60, but there were some other factors that were in play when I said that. Most notably among them is that the Ishizu cards, you know, we still had a lot of shufflers, and of course the millers, but most notably the shufflers, and getting those in the graveyard was a lot of my motivation to play that Grasslook screener, because obviously they are very good disruption tools against tier limits and everything else that is graveyard based. But with those cards getting limited, it just didn't really feel like it was worth it. Also, like, trying to play a Braver package, even if it were still around in 40 cards, is definitely rough, but without that being gone, that was also another big motivation to play 60 cards. So I think at the time I made that comment that, like, Adamancipator should be played at 60 always. I think that was accurate, but now I do think there is a lot of merit to exploring the 40 card package. So most notably what's been dropped are not just the Ishizu cards, but also the Vernu Selfs. When I was really just thinking about it, right, like, I had this 40 card deck right here. I was going through Adamancipator's rebuilding the deck, and I had this list, and I thought to myself, okay, if I'm going to add 20 cards, what is it going to be? 2 Grasslook Screener, 3 of each Vernu Self, Flourishing Hills, Awakening Forest, and Missing Seedlings, so that's 11 cards. I would throw in all the 5 remaining Ishizu cards we have at that point, that's 16. And then, like, maybe some more, like, Xenoguitars, or, like, maybe another Cartorhyn, and that just didn't feel like a compelling enough reason to go up to 60. I mean, of course, this deck does generally like having a lot of the cards in the graveyard in general, but ultimately, I felt that it wasn't worth it post-banlist to play a 60-card package, which is why I'm back down to 40 now. So not only has the main deck been completely revamped, going down from 40 cards to 60, but the extra deck has definitely gotten some changes as well. Most notable is the inclusion now of Accel Synchro Stardust Dragon. There are quite a number of times where you want to make a level 10 Synchro, but you only have access to the materials to make a level 8. And the problem with trying to play board load sometimes that you don't always have the Link monster handy in the graveyard. It's not always, like, situational. You know, you don't always have the means to do that necessarily handy. So I think the Accel Synchro Stardust ends up being a pretty good compromise in that regard. The Boarload Savage Dragon in general, I think, is, like, still fine to play, but this is one of those extra decks that would very much like to be 20 cards, and Boarload would be in those extra 5 cards. But I'm going to try Accel Synchro Stardust. For the time being, it's been pretty good for me so far, and I can see myself definitely still using it in the future. That's the major addition to the extra deck. Everything else is pretty standard, just stuff we've played before. And yeah, as far as the main deck goes, I mean, there are some things that I do like about playing 60 cards, mostly that you get to play extra copies of stuff like Gigantes. Like, sometimes this gets milled, or you open it, and then it can occasionally be a little bit awkward to make plays with your Black Dragon searches sometimes, but usually, if you don't have access to Gigantes anymore, what you can do is you can just grab Cartorhyn, Analyzer, and then one of the level 2 Adamancipator monsters. That's also pretty useful if you've already used either Researcher or Seeker. That way you still get 2 Excavates total off of your Block Dragon searches there. All in all, I think Adamancipator is still in a place where it's been for quite a while, where it's a very solid, floats somewhere in, like, the tier 2 to 3 category. I think that's been the case pretty much ever since Block Dragon got limited. The deck hasn't always seen consistent play in the meta, but I think it's always had a place in the meta consistently. And it's funny, a lot of people really don't like this deck, mostly because of Block Dragon, but I think with Block Dragon at 1, and, like, I know a lot of people are going to disagree, and I don't even necessarily think it's, like, wrong to disagree with the statement, but I think Adamancipator is fine with Block Dragon at 1. You know, the combos can be long, yes, and the inboards can be tough to deal with, yes, but ultimately, this is a deck that's still very susceptible to stuff like Maxx or early disruption in general. Particularly if you cut off access to Black Dragon, this deck definitely has a lot harder of a time making significant plays. So I think it's fine for a deck to be so centralized on a card if that card is at 1 and also relatively easily disruptible, which I think Black Dragon is. So that's just my 2 cents. I also, to be fair, am a huge lover of Adamancipator, so I am admittedly speaking from a slightly biased perspective, but I still don't think it's too far off the mark. Yeah, I mean, we're on 3 Doki Doki, we're on 3 Prank-Kids Rockies. This is pretty standard stuff as far as a 40-card Adamancipator deck goes. It's definitely just been a minute since we've played a 40-card Adamancipator deck. I am playing a whole playset of Infinite Impermanence. Normally, I don't play too many trap cards in my Adamancipator decks, but Imperm is super duper good in this meta. Imperm is, like, I don't know, I'm pretty much jamming 3 copies of this card into, like, literally every single deck I play right now, just because I think it's like the be-all, like it's my evenly, I guess, because I see a lot of people swearing by evenly and teching it always. Imperm is my evenly. This is my, like, you know, if I have to go second, this is the card I'm turning to, and I like this better than something like evenly because, you know, this is also good going first, not just going second as well, which I've talked about in length in my going second cards video, but I digress. So let's go ahead and break this list down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay. We're on 3 Maxx, 3 Doki Doki, 1 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 3 Adamancipator Seeker, 3 Adamancipator Researcher, 1 Cartorhyn, the hidden gem of the Seafront, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Gigantes, 3 Koa'ki Mirror Guardian, 1 Revival Golem, 1 Tackle Crusader, 3 Prank-Kids Rockies, 2 Adamancipator Analyzer, 3 Koa'ki Mirror Supplier, 1 Rockband Xenoguitar, 1 Black Dragon, 1 Foolish Burial, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, and then the 3 Infinite Impermanences. That's going to be it for the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we're on 1 Adamancipator Risen Raptite, 1 Adamancipator Risen Dragite, 1 Accel Synchro Stardust. Oh my goodness, I don't have my alert box muted apparently. That is my bad. If that came through the video, that might not have, but I think it did. Anyway, where's I? Accel Synchro Stardust Dragon. There is also Baronne de Fleur, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chengying, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Gallant Granite, 1 Prank-Kids Meow, 1 Prank-Kids Do, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Asa the Earth Charmer Immovable, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, 1 Accesscode Talker, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Alright, that's going to go ahead and do it for the list. Now let's look at some games. Alright, our first game of this video is going to be up against Tearlaments. I usually like to start with a game against Tearlaments at the top, generally speaking, because I figure a lot of people want to see whatever deck I'm playing and how it fares up against the big meta threat here. So we get to go first, and this hand is definitely exceptionally good. I'm going to start by normal summoning this Koa'ki Mirror Guardian, then I get to throw out Researcher and Seeker, both. Opponent's going to respond with Tearlament's Havness. I'm not going to be negating and destroying this with Koa'ki Mirror Guardian. The reason that I'm not is because it's pretty decently likely for them to have another Tearlament monster in their hand. If I negate and destroy the Havness now, then they'll just get to fuse for Kickalos, which kind of defeats the purpose of negating the mill. The mill has a chance of summoning Kickalos, but is not guaranteed to. Plus, obviously, I would ideally like to keep the monster effect and negation and destruction around for a little bit later, if possible. So, it's going to end up milling Rhino Heart evenly and Exchange of the Spirit. But I don't believe they're going to end up summoning the Rhino Heart here. No, they're not. Which is kind of baffling because we're going to, spoiler alert, find out later they do have another Tearlament card in their hand, but they chose not to summon Rhino Heart here. Definitely very interesting. I guess it's not that interesting because I could just negate and destroy it with the Guardian. But if the other card is a Fuser, then it still would have procced. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just another Rhino Heart in hand. Who knows? Actually, now that I say that out loud, that seems to be the most likely scenario. But anyway, our Adamancipator monsters find us another Koa'ki Mirror Guardian as well as a Prank-Kids Rockies. Prank-Kids Rockies is great because it basically puts a free Link 2 monster on the field. You get to climb up to Do and then still have another Rockies on board. So I could have made a Gallant Granite there, but I'm going to take a little bit of a chance and just go for a Raptite and Excavate with that instead. Here's going to be us going for the Accel Synchro Stardust. This is going to be particularly good here to go ahead and set up the Baronne de Fleur. Because normally we wouldn't be able to yet because we don't have access to Black Dragon, but thanks to Accel Synchro Stardust, we have the means to. And if I had only had board load, the only option at that point would have been to equip the Meow Meow Moo, which really wouldn't have been super great. So that's kind of what I mean when I say sometimes Accel, Seeker, or Stardust is actually situationally better than board load Savage would be. In fact, a decent amount of the time it is. So now we can make Gallant Granite, and believe it or not, yeah, I actually have not even used Block Dragon just yet. Block Dragon isn't going to be particularly needed here because I've already used, like, not even pretty much all of my Adamancipator Tuner's effects, so the searches off Block Dragon aren't going to be doing a whole lot, but I'll still grab Cartorhyn, Gigantes, and a Doki Doki. I'm just going to throw the Cartorhyn in the graveyard just to get my water monster in the yard, although I guess I already have the Dropsies in there to be fair, so I didn't need to do that, but I guess more saving the Gigantes than anything else. I'm going to use the Doki Doki and the Block Dragon to make IP, and I get to bring back Block Dragon once again, set the Imperm, and then I'll blow up this Havness, and as you can see, my opponent's going to proc the Havness effect, so they do have another tier limit monster in their hand. They just opted not to use the Rhino Heart, which again is why I suspect it's got to be another Rhino Heart that's in their hand, because that doesn't make any sense for this to be a fuse, or for you to not use Rhino Heart earlier in the turn. So I figured it might activate, you know, earlier in the turn, but now I have the Appaloosa to negate the effect, so it's totally fine. Fun fact about the Koa'ki mirrors, by the way, you'll note that I ultimately did not reveal card in hand, but they didn't get destroyed. That's because, well, the effect destroys them, but while Block Dragon is on the field, your rock monsters can't be destroyed except by battle, so that means that they're not destroyed by their own effects, and you do not have to reveal a rock monster. And the opponent's just going to concede there. So ultimately, this ends up being more of like a good showcasing of what a turn 1 combo from this deck looks like, more than necessarily like playing super intensively against tier limits. But, you know, if there's a deck I'm going to just completely dump on with an exceptionally good turn 1 like this, I'm glad it's tier limits. As you can see, we had so much disruption moving into that turn. A grand total of, what, 4 different monster negates, and we could even use them on multiple times at a chain link because 2 of them were Koa'ki Guardian. We had the Omni negated the Baron. We had the IP going into Block Dragon for a Knightmare Unicorn, as well as a bunch of searches, and we even had the Imperm, the Ash Blossom, just to have the icing on top. There was pretty much no way even a deck like Tier Limit could plow through a board like this, which is definitely one of Adamancipator's, if not their just absolute greatest strength. So that's just our first game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one here. Alright, this duel is going to be up against Numeron. Big, bad, scary Numeron. I say it kind of half sarcastically. Like, it's one of those decks that it feels like the game is either like a total cakewalk or just an absolute nightmare. But we're going to be going first. I kind of suspected it might be Numeron because I remember losing this coin flip. But unfortunately, we just did not get that great of a turn 1 hand. I'm just going to have to set the Revival Golem and the Call By and then pass. Opponent's going to Feather Duster my back row. Before ultimately passing back to me as well. So it seems like we're both pretty bricked up here. But fortunately, I have a pretty easy way to unbrick myself, even without top decking the Seeker, which is now what I'm going to do. What I could have done had I not top decked it was still a normal summon Supplier, flip up Revival Golem, overlay for Gallant Granite, detach for the Block Dragon. Block Dragon would have banished... I would have had to have topped an Earth monster, to be fair, but Block Dragon could have banished the... Well, actually, no, I wouldn't have, because I could have... Banish the 1 Earth monster, that's right, and then summon Gigantes. Gigantes and Gallant Granite link to Asa. That puts 3 Earth monsters in my graveyard, and then I can Block Dragon. So I didn't even need to top deck an Earth monster. But we did top an Earth monster. We even topped an Adamancipator Seeker. So even though it's not necessarily a guaranteed play, like the one I listed before, I'm still going to take a chance to summon it here, because I think the high roll happens often enough and is good enough to be worth the risk. And as you can see, we end up with a Koa'ki Guardian. And even if I had whiffed, I still could have synced for Raptite and then special Supplier anyway. So we did still have a contingency plan. Opponent's going to Ash Blossom my Raptite. This is 100% fine. I am A-okay with this because I can just special the Gigantes, overlay for Gallant Granite, and now we go for Block Dragon. Definitely going to hold my Koa'ki Guardian in case my opponent has another meaningful form of disruption. Again, I also suspect that they're Numeron just due to the fact they let me go first and just the way they played their turn 1. So now we get to special the Block Dragon, link those off for Asa, the Earth Charmer Immovable. Here comes Block Dragon Searches, and my opponent's got a DD Crow that they're going to try to use against the Block Dragon. Now, of course, that doesn't stop the searches, but I'm still going to use my Koa'ki Guardian to negate and destroy this effect, so that way my opponent is not able to, banish my Block Dragon. I can keep using it for more plays. I think, there actually was a merit to not negating that. Like, I can still pretty easily find lethal and still would have had a Koa'ki Guardian up. To be fair, that actually is not the worst idea in the world, because of all the decks in this meta to be playing Nibiru, I think Neuron is definitely the most likely among them right now to have that card in its deck, so it definitely would have been better. Now, I'm just the luckiest player in the world, and when my opponent doesn't have it too, I just excavate another Koa'ki Guardian right away anyway, but I do still think that there is merit to playing around it correctly, and at this point, yeah, I've amassed enough damage on the board. I've got a monster negate, I've got a spell trap negate. I'm pretty confident there's nothing my opponent can do, even if they have like a Numeron wall, and surely enough, they don't have anything. They're just going to take all the damage and then get lethal. So there is that game against Numeron. Let's go ahead and go straight into our next duel here. This time we find ourselves up against Blackwings, which is a deck, of course, we've been seeing more often lately because of the new support, and is honestly quite scary with the new support. The deck is actually insanely good. It's you know, like I said before, were we not in a tier limits meta, before I mean during my tier list video, were we not in a tier limits meta, I could easily see Blackwing being like tier 3, maybe even 2, but I'm going to start with a draw phase Maxi. My opponent's got an Ash Blossom for it though, so they have won the Maxi minigame. They're going to start with Shamal to get their Black Feather Whirlwind. This is the one that triggers when the opponent synchro, or when you synchro summon a Dark Synchro monster. So opponent's going to Allure of Darkness, sending Simoon the Poison Wind. And that actually really confused me because I was like, wait a second, what? Like, this is like their best card. They must not have another Blackwing monster. They're that bricked up. It's not that they're bricked up, they just already had 2 Black Whirlwinds. And then they summon Vata. Although, I guess to be fair, if they had banished Vata, they then would have been able to summon Simoon. So they had to have done it this way. Okay, that makes sense. The Black Whirlwind Surges are going to allow them to get a Sharnga, as well as an Orochi the Squall. Now at this point, I definitely had to stop and read these cards and be like, okay, are any of these relevant, like, bodies? Like, can they special summon themselves? Long story short, the Sharanga, we shouldn't have to worry about this card, probably. Moving forward, my opponent can put an Orochi the Squall on the field with just Vata, and then potentially do a Link Summon. The reason I'm noting this is because I've got this Imperm in my hand, and I'm thinking when my opponent activates Vata's effect, that's when I'm going to Imperm, because this does tend to be, from what I've observed, one of the bigger choke points of the deck. So just wanted to make sure I knew what my opponent was capable of doing after I stopped them. So, like I said, going to Imperm the Vata, which leaves them able to only really special summon Orochi and then go for a Link, which as you can see is exactly what they're doing. They're going for the Raid Raptor Link here, which allows them to special summon level 4 lower winged beasts. They do get a Zephyros, but it doesn't seem like they're able to do too much with it. Again, they needed a monster with 2,000 or more attack in order to make use of the Chagra's effect, which they can't, so... Here we managed to rip, I think, did we rip Black Dragon off the top of our deck? Yeah, we did. We're just the luckiest player in the world. Well, it actually doesn't even end up really mattering here, honestly, because, like, we still could have made Gallant Granite here. Instead, because we have Black Dragon, we just have the freedom to make a Dragite instead. So we can just do a more streamlined version of finding lethal here. Gonna use the Dragite to hopefully excavate at least 2 cards to bounce these monsters, and lo and behold, we do manage to find them, so... Back those cards go. Gonna summon Black Dragon, normal summon Gallant Granite, the Koa'ki Guardian. I'm not even gonna bother like linking off the Black Dragon here. I'm just gonna go ahead and start swinging for lethal, and my opponent's gonna concede before we can even finish doing so. So, yeah, didn't even need Black Dragon's effect at all to find lethal here. There are some times where you don't really need Black Dragon's effect, but I mean, even here we still needed the body, and that does often end up being the case as well. So definitely still an integral part of the deck and this win, just not the searching effect. But we have one more duel to take a look at. Let's go straight into it here. Alright, for our final game of this video, we're going to be up against Pendulums. Good old Pendulums, a forever rogue mainstay of the format. I guess somewhat similar to Adamancipator as well, to be fair, is kind of the same way. But I think Adamancipator has pretty consistently been better than Pendulums, and that is also the case right now. But let's go start with the Scroll Combat Joker. I am going to Imperm it. Normally against Pendulums, I kind of like to save the Imperm for Electromite, but Normal Summon Joker is definitely something I'm fine imperming, because the thing about pendulums is, just due to the inherent nature of how scales work, they often need a pretty specific combination of pendulum monsters in their hand to get going. So if I can stop the Normal Summon Skullcrobat Joker, they not only have, well, obviously have used their Normal Summon, but it becomes much harder for them to Pendulum Summon now, because it becomes much less likely that they have a scale they can use in their hand. Bo's going to activate a Purple Poison Magician and then set a card in pass. So again, as predicted, they don't really have a set scale. Do have to note about this Purple Poison Magician, though, is that we can't just freely attack into the Skullcrobat Joker. If we do, the Pendulum Magician will boost its attack points to 3,000, and then, more importantly, destroy one of our face-up cards in the field. So, gotta be mindful of that. Gonna start by normaling Doki Doki, then special the Researcher. Opponent flips up the face-down Time Pendulum Graph to blow up their Purple Poison Magician. That will not only destroy my Researcher due to the Pendulum Graph's effect, but also with the Poison Magician's effect, they get to blow up my Doki Doki. I do get to summon a Supplier here, and activate the effect, and thankfully I did also open Foolish Burial, so I can just directly send Block Dragon, banish 3 of my cards, including one from hand here, and then bring it back. Now I can link it with the Supplier that I summoned earlier to go for also the Earth Charmer Immovable, and from here we get the Block Dragon Search. So you don't always need the Block Dragon Search, like I said earlier, but at the same time, that is like a really big hurdle to clear. Like, if you can resolve it, then it's not hard at all to find plays, or if it's turn 2 like it is here, usually just lethal. So I'm going to grab both Analyzer and Seeker, because I'd already used Researcher. Of course, Cartorhyn is also needed in order to set up the Analyzer normal summon. We'll also put a water monster in our graveyard as well for a potential spell trap negate, but I don't foresee that coming up here. Alright, sinking for 6 in order to make the Raptite. I then get to use the Tackle Crusader's effect to bounce the Pendulum Graph, just because. Now we'll go ahead and excavate with our Raptite here. Looks like we managed to find a Roxy's as well as a Seeker, but we're not going to need to do anything much past that. As you can see, the opponent is just going to go ahead and concede and give us the win. So that is going to finish things up here for this deck profile. Adamancipator is interesting. Although it did not directly receive, honestly, many impactful hits to the ban list, the ban list was still warping enough that I think it does change how the deck is generally built and then obviously played as a result. I've been liking this 40-card build a lot, and I expect to use it more here in the future. But that's going to go ahead and do it for these games. Now let's move to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.